When I consider the great problem of wealth, I cannot begin with myself alone. For riches, whether small or vast, have never truly belonged to any man. They are but a trust, a stewardship granted for a season, to be wisely used for the benefit of all. Allow me to explain. In my own lifetime, I rose from the humblest beginnings, a poor weaver's son from Dunfermline, Scotland, to become one of the wealthiest men in America. Yet never did I believe that this fortune was mine in the selfish sense of ownership. I did not create the world's resources. I did not invent steel or coal or the iron ore hidden in the hills. I merely discovered their value and learned to bring them together with labor and organization. Wealth, then, was not my creation. It was my stewardship. Now many may imagine that such reflections belong only to those who already possess great fortunes. But I say to you, even the young man just beginning, the woman saving her first wages, the family struggling to build a home, you too are trustees. Whatever sum you control, however small, is entrusted to your care. And the question is not, how much do you own? But rather, what are you doing with what is in your hands? There is a common misconception that riches bring freedom from responsibility. Quite the opposite. Wealth multiplies responsibility. Every dollar is a silent servant, awaiting orders. If sent forth selfishly, it breeds envy, corruption, and decay. But if sent forth wisely, it builds schools, libraries, hospitals, and opportunities for others to rise. Consider this. The farmer who possesses but a small field must decide whether to cultivate it with care or neglect it and let it wither. The shopkeeper with a modest store must decide whether to treat customers with fairness or cheat them for quick gain. Each of us, no matter our station, is entrusted with something, and the true measure of our character lies in how faithfully we manage that trust. When I first began to earn wages as a bobbin boy and later as a telegraph operator, my income was meager. Yet even then, I sought to use a portion for self-improvement, for the comfort of my family, and for service to others. A coin spent foolishly was lost forever. A coin saved or shared wisely became a seed, growing into greater good. That principle applies whether one handles $1 or $1,000,000. Wealth, like power, must be justified by its use. The man who hoards his fortune for mere display, who builds palaces for vanity, while the poor suffer in ignorance, is not a true master of wealth, but a slave to it. Such riches corrupt their possessor, and in time they vanish. But the man who sees himself as a trustee, who holds wealth not for personal indulgence, but for the progress of society, becomes a benefactor. His fortune lives on in schools that educate the young, in libraries that open worlds of knowledge, in institutions that cure disease and lift the downtrodden. In this way, money, which in itself is lifeless, becomes alive, breathing hope into countless souls. Let me make this plain for you. Whether your resources are few or many, ask yourself always, what fruit will my money bear? If it bears only selfish pleasure, its harvest will be small. If it bears improvement for yourself and others, its harvest will be bountiful. Now, some will say, Mr. Carnegie, it is easy for you to speak thus, having once possessed untold millions. But remember, my fortune began not with millions, but with pennies. The ladder of wealth is climbed one rung at a time, and every rung demands stewardship. Think of your present circumstances as the lower rungs of that ladder. If you are faithful with the little you have, you are preparing yourself for more. But if you squander what is small, how shall you be trusted with what is large? The Bible itself declares, "He who is faithful in little will be faithful in much." Life tests us in the same manner. When I labored in the telegraph office, I had scarcely enough to support myself and my mother. Yet I chose to live frugally, to save where I could, and to invest in knowledge. Every book I purchased, every evening spent in study, was wealth used as a trust. That trust, small though it was, prepared me for the opportunities that later arose. So I say to you who are building your fortunes, treat each dollar as a messenger. Send it forth with purpose. Let it serve your growth, your family's well-being, and society's progress. Then, when greater wealth comes, as it often does to those who prove themselves, you will already know how to manage it. Many believe they own money, but in truth, money owns them. The man who cannot sleep because he fears the loss of his wealth is not a master, but a prisoner. The woman who spends beyond her means to impress neighbors is not free, but enslaved. True mastery lies not in possession, but in control. Can you command your wealth, however small, to serve your values? Can you deny yourself wasteful pleasures today in order to invest in tomorrow's growth? Can you resist the vanity of appearance in order to strengthen the reality of substance? These are the tests of stewardship. When wealth becomes your servant, you are free. When you become its servant, you are lost. You must understand that the highest duty of wealth, whether of the millionaire or the wage earner, is to advance the good of others. For what is the purpose of gaining riches if not to multiply life and opportunity for mankind? I did not build libraries because I sought monuments for my name. I built them because I knew the value of a book to a hungry mind. I knew what it was to be a poor boy, craving knowledge with no means of purchasing it. By opening libraries, I gave to others the chance I had so longed for. That was not charity, it was justice. It was the rightful use of wealth as a trust. And you too can follow this principle. You may not erect a library, but you may buy a book for a child, share wisdom with a friend, or support a cause that uplifts your community. Never despise the small act, for wealth's true glory lies not in its size, but in its service. Permit me to give you a practical measure. Ask yourself at each stage of life, am I improving myself with the resources I hold? Am I providing honorably for those dependent on me? Am I setting aside a portion for future security? Am I returning something, however modest, for the benefit of others? If you can answer yes to these questions, you are fulfilling the trust of wealth. And know this, the test grows with your fortune. The apprentice earning a small wage is tested no less than the merchant with a shop, the shopkeeper no less than the manufacturer no less than the magnate. Each is a trustee, and each will give account in the ledger of life. Let me share with you a secret. The greatest pleasure wealth can give is not in its spending, but in its giving. When you see a young man educated through your assistance, when you see a family lifted from despair by your generosity, when you see the spark of hope lighted in another's eye through your stewardship, that joy surpasses all luxury. I have owned palaces, but they gave me less satisfaction than a single letter from a poor student who found his way through a book from one of my libraries. I have traveled the world, but no sight delighted me more than a community flourishing because of an institution I had endowed. Do not wait until you are rich to discover this joy. Begin where you are. Share a portion of what you have now, however small. You will find that wealth multiplies in its giving, and that the act of stewardship enriches the soul more than it ever diminishes the purse. In the end, all wealth passes from our hands. Death strips the millionaire and the laborer alike. The only difference is whether we have directed our fortune to noble ends, or whether we have left it to be scattered by chance. The man who dies rich dies in disgrace, for he has failed to discharge the trust placed in him. The man who dies having used his wealth for the good of others dies honored, for he has fulfilled his stewardship. But again, I remind you, this truth applies not only to millionaires. Every man and woman will leave behind some legacy, whether of money or example or influence. See to it that your legacy is one of service. Use your wealth, however modest, to leave the world better than you found it. So let us settle this matter in our hearts. Wealth is not ownership, but trusteeship. The rich man is not master, but steward. And every one of us, whether possessing little or much, carries this sacred trust. Begin today to see yourself as a trustee. Rule your money, lest it rule you. Send it forth to labor for your growth, your family's security, and the uplift of your fellows. And when greater wealth comes, as it surely may, you will already stand prepared as a wise steward. For the true worth of wealth lies not in what we keep, but in what we contribute. And the greatest honor is not in possessing riches, but in using them well.